Hello, welcome to the QE Auto page. Today we're going to show you the demo on the tire plug lab. So to do the tire plug lab, you are going to need a cordless drill with battery. You're going to need the tire plug lab box. Now the tire plug lab box, luckily for you, has instructions on it. You can read these as you're going through them yourself. Inside the tire plug lab, there are a few pieces of important tools that you're going to need, and I will bring those out and talk about them one by one. Okay, so to start this lab, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to actually create a hole in the tire. Now, to create the proper size hole for this lab, we're actually going to use the drill bit that is part of this box and place it into the drill. Okay, so to do that, you need to make sure that the chuck is open, place that drill bit inside the chuck, and then slowly tighten it up so that it stays centered into the chuck. Now this can be a little bit tricky at times, so take your time to make sure that it is centered. Once you have it in there, carefully tighten it up and you're ready to drill. Now on the drill, this is a variable speed drill. It has two settings by pushing a tab on either side. The one on the right side with your pointer finger if you are right-handed, and it has the arrow pointing forward, that is for the direction of forward drilling. To go reverse, simply press the button on the opposite side, but in our case we want it to go forward. So at that point you can carefully pull that button and you will notice that the drill bit will start drilling. The farther you pull in, the faster it turns. Alright, so we're ready with the drill. So once we're ready to start the lab, the first thing that you're going to need is a wax pencil. And with the wax pencil, what you're going to do is anywhere on the tread surface of the tire, you are going to draw a circle that indicates where you are going to make your repair. From that point, we're going to bring the drill back in the forward direction, and we are going to carefully place that in that circle and drill the hole. Please note that you should be wearing safety glasses when you are doing anything with power tools in the shop. As you can hear right now, there is air coming out of that hole because we have just created a hole in that tire. Once the hole has been drilled, we then need to take this tool here that has the spiral drill-like shape on it called the Reamer, and we need to insert it into that hole, twisting down at the same time as rotating it, pushing down, all the way down to the base of the tool. Once the tool has reached the bottom, pull it straight out and do the process again. The point of using a reamer on this hole is to make that hole the proper size for the plug, but also to take out the rubber around the hole to expose the metal bands that are laid on the tread. This will then hold that plug in place as we place it in there. Once it's been reamed out, we are then going to take our insertion tool. It looks like the head of a needle, and we are going to take our rubber plugs. So inside this little plastic case, you will see that there are rubber plugs. This rubber plug, you only need one of them. It looks very sticky, but it's not so sticky to your hand. Pull one plug out, place it into the needle head, okay, bring it halfway through, and then once it's halfway in, you're going to place it over top of that hole and then carefully driving it straight down. Please remember that you do not rotate in any which motion when you're inserting the plug. It is just a straight down motion. Protect your wrist as you are pushing it down. And insert it so it's halfway in. At this point, what you're going to do is you are going to bring the tire up just underneath you, place one hand on that tire, one hand on the handle, and in one motion, you're going to lift it straight up. By going nice and slow, there is a better chance of you pulling the plug back out. The faster you go, the easier chance and the better chance of you having the plug staying in the tire. So here we go. We can see that the plug has been removed from the tool and is still solidly in place on that tire. At this point, we are going to bring our side cutters in, and we are going to cut off one side at a time. We're going to leave a slight little nub or a slight little amount of material left above that tire surface, and we are not going to cut it flush. So we cut one off, make sure these pieces go in the garbage. And we have our plug in place. Once you have the plug inserted, inside the kit or attached to a hose in our shop will be an inflation tool. What you'll need to do if it's not connected already is put the inflation tool into the air hose by carefully pulling back on the sheath, pushing the tool into its spot, and releasing the sheath so that the tool is inserted. The same thing for removal, holding the tool, pull back on the sheath, and the tool pops out. That is how every air tool works in our shops. Once we have this in place, we are going to place the inflation tool over top of the Schrader valve, and we are going to inflate the tire. Now the first sound that you hear is not what we want to hear. That will be the sound of air escaping from the Schrader valve and the tire. That sound means that you have not fully seated the inflation tool on the Schrader valve. This is the sound that you should hear. While inflating the tire, you want to get to 32 psi. And that is a safe working range for the majority of tires on the road for different vehicles. We do not want to overinflate that tire. So now that we have the tire inflated, we put the pressure checker onto the Schrader valve, press firmly so it's not leaking, and we check the amount. Now if we can see here, the segments are broken up from 10, 20, 30, so there's nominations in between that indicate that right now we are over that 32 psi range. So to release air out of the tire, what we need to do is we need to push this bar back up, and we're using that bar on the inside of that Schrader valve to release the pressure to the proper pressure. And at this point, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to see a single marker above 30, which would indicate that this is 32 psi and the right pressure. Okay. So now that we have the proper pressure in our tire, and this is our tire plug, we need to use a soapy water mixture and spray it onto that area to make sure that there's no bubbles that form. After you've tested it a couple times, that shows that and indicates that your tire plug is correct, and we are done our tire plug lab. Now, just a couple quick notes about this lab. This is a temporary fix and should not be considered a permanent solution for repairing a tire. There is a proper way to do a permanent repair, and you can see another video on YouTube of how to do that as we go forward. Thank you for watching.